This weekend post is an ON1 Photo RAW Q&A. Hey everybody, I'm Scott Davenport and welcome to In Post. Thanks for joining me today. But today we're going to be doing an ON1 Photo RAW Q&A. A bunch of questions have come in over the last several weeks. Thanks very much to everybody who's asking questions. It's always great to hear from you. If you got a question, please send them on in. Now, if you're not an ON1 Photo RAW user, then go ahead and skip this video, and that's okay. I'll be back on Tuesday, and no hard feelings. We're still friends. But I want to get into these questions here. So let's start with the first one. This one came in from Tom through YouTube, and he asked, how do I save my work when I'm in Photo RAW? And well, he's using Photo RAW as a standalone program, and when you're doing that, it doesn't need to save. You don't have an explicit save button. Everything is automatically tracked by ON1. So I've just got this photo here loaded into develop, and let's just go ahead and hit the auto button so we can see some things change, right? So it's got a little brighter, a little more contrast, and then let's go over into effects and add something really obvious like, oh gosh, bleach bypass. That'll be, actually that's not really all that obvious. Let's add black and white. Okay, so this has definitely been changed. It's been altered, right? Now there's no save button, right? There's nothing down here to save anything. When you're done, you're done. All of these changes have been tracked by Photo RAW. It'll remember those. And so back in Browse, go back to the Browse module, we can see here is that black and white image. Now, of course, like any non-destructive editor, if I were to look at this photo outside of Photo RAW, it would look like the original RAW file because nothing other than ON1 understands what those changes are. But I didn't have to save anything. That was automatically done for me. And if I want to make changes, well, I just go back into one of the modules. I'll go back into effects. We'll find that black and white is still applied, and we can do more things with it. Dynamic contrast, or maybe I don't want that black and white anymore, and so on and so forth. You go on with your editing. So there's no saving per se. When you want to share the photo with the outside world, including your edits, you want to export it. That's not really saving, it's exporting it as a new format, typically a JPEG if you're saving that, sharing that online. So Tom, I hope that helps with your question. Thanks very much for asking. Next question is from Victor, also through YouTube, and he asks, can I export more than one file at a time with Photo RAW? Short answer is yes, you can. And it's just a matter of selecting what photos you want to export and then using the export dialog. Of course, a set of photos you export will all get the same settings. So if you're selecting a particular file format like JPEG or a quality or a resize, all of those things will apply to everything I've selected. I'll show you how that works. So the export button is this little upward arrow way down here at the bottom right corner. You can also get to it from the File Export menu. And when we open that up, let me select a few things here, these three photos. We open that up. We get on the side a variety of options. Now, I have a different video that talks about how to export photos in general from Photo RAW. But the thing here is we selected three different photos before opening this up. And so as long as I choose something reasonable for my export file names, like the current name of the file, and then I probably don't even need that, I'll use custom size. I have JPEG set. I can pick a particular folder I want these things to go to. Once I hit that export button down there, it's going to export all three photos. And I guess I'll just let that start running while I'm talking here. So all three photos will be exported to this particular folder that I selected. And when we're done, all three will be there with those same parameters we set. So that's really the only caveat. If you're exporting multiple photos, you're going to need to decide what size or what format do I want them all. If you're doing a share for social media or creating an album for somebody, chances are you're going to use the same settings for a lot of your photos. So batching them up like this is perfectly fine. Victor, great question. Thanks a lot for asking. Last question today is from Mark. This came in through one of the ON1 forums, and I can't remember if it was on Facebook or ON1's website, but he was asking about local adjustments and how we can find the gradient pins to re-edit them and move them around. So I've got this photo here where I have some local adjustments added to this photo. And if I go into local adjustments, we see there's two of them here. And as I select each one, I can see that there's a mask here. I don't see anything showing up on the screen. It's because by default, the brush tool is activated. If you've done a gradient, switch over to the local gradient tool, and you're going to see that pin shows up again here. So for this one here, we've got a little rise on exposure and some stuff going on with saturation. So we can move this around now and fine tune it to where we want it to sit. And the same thing, now that I have that tool selected, it's going to remember that, and I can move up to my next gradient and I can change that one as well. Now, we don't get pins for brush strokes, unfortunately. So if we do a local adjustment brush stroke, let's just add one here. Let's make a new adjustment here. So we have a brush and something like this. This is very obvious to see, but if I were to go back to the local view, or I'm zooming, I don't have the pin that shows me where I've brushed. When I go back to the brush, I don't get like a point where my brush stroke began and I could move around or adjust. I'm honestly not sure how useful it would be, other than being able to find it. For small things, actually, it would be kind of useful where you've got a very small amount of brushing or a very low opacity, something that's not as drastic as a change here. Something like if this were, a tenth of an exposure. And I'm looking at this now, and because I know where I brushed, I can see that edge, right? Otherwise, I've got to go to the masking overlay to find out, all right, where did I brush things in? So it would be a convenience to be able to find that pin, although in practice, I've never taken a hand-brushed pin and moved it around to a different area of a photo, because usually things don't line up. So we get pins with the gradient tool. Just activate that tool in the tool well. And if you've got a brush stroke, you're not sure where it is, you got to flip on the mask overlay to find out where in your scene you've got that brushing going on. The tip of the week is, yes, you can export multiple photos from ON1 Photo RAW. In the Browse module, select the set that you want to export, and then fire up the export module. And if your files are in different folders, create an album, put them all in the same album, and then you can select them all in the album and then do the export there as well. So you got plenty of different ways to skin that particular cat. And with that, that's going to do it for this week's In Post. I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you did, let me know somehow. Comments on the video below. Questions are always welcome. Send in more questions. I'd love to do another Q&A show. Maybe it'll be themed around something else. Who knows? If I get a whole bunch of questions about masking, we'll do a masking Q&A. And until next time, my name's Scott Davenport, and happy shooting.